Part 1.
I also struggle with speaking. I feel embarrassed about my accent and making mistakes.
Remember, making mistakes is a crucial part of learning.
Part 2.
Yes, somewhat. But I still feel nervous about speaking.
Let's practice right now. Order your coffee in English and take your time.
Part 3.
Hi, Professor. I've been reading more English books, as you suggested.
That's excellent. What kind of books have you been reading?
Part 4.
Hello. You guys are group studying here, just like I suggested.
Yes, and we've also been helping each other with vocabulary and pronunciation.
That
We're planning to start a book club next.
This group has really helped me feel less isolated in my learning process.
Part 5.
I feel much more confident, thanks to your guidance and the study group.
even as you become more proficient, keep practicing and exploring the language.
Pattern English.
Part 1. The initial meeting. In the professor's office.
Hello, Professor. I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm really struggling with my English studies.
Struggle with. Struggle with means to have difficulty doing something or dealing with a problem. For example,
I struggle with math. It's hard for me to understand.
Hello, Professor. I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm really struggling with my English studies.
Hello, please don't apologize. I'm here to help. What specific challenges are you facing?
My main problem is understanding spoken English. When people talk fast, I get lost.
That's a common issue. Have you tried watching English movies or shows with subtitles?
Yes, but I still find it hard to keep up.
It's all about practice. Try pausing and repeating phrases. And don't worry about understanding every word at first.
I also struggle with speaking. I feel embarrassed about my accent and making mistakes.
embarrassed. Embarrassed means to feel shy, ashamed, or guilty about something that has happened. For example,
I was embarrassed when I forgot the words to the song during the show.
I also struggle with speaking. I feel embarrassed about my accent and making mistakes.
Remember, making mistakes is a crucial part of learning. As for your accent, it's part of your unique identity.
But I want to speak like a native.
It's good to aim for improvement, but perfection isn't necessary for effective communication.
That's a relief to hear. What about vocabulary? I often forget words.
Try to use new words in your daily conversations. Also, keeping a vocabulary journal can be very helpful.
A vocabulary journal? Can you explain that?
Sure. Whenever you learn a new word, write it down, along with its meaning and a sentence using it.
That sounds useful. And grammar?
Grammar comes with practice. Reading and writing regularly can greatly improve your grammar skills.
I do read, but sometimes the grammar structures confuse me.
When you encounter a confusing structure, try to break it down and understand its components.
Break it down. Break it down means to divide something complex into simpler, more manageable parts to make it easier to understand or deal with. For example,
To solve the math problem, first break it down into smaller equations.
When you encounter a confusing structure, try to break it down and understand its components.
Do you have any book recommendations for that?
Absolutely. I can recommend a few books that are great for English learners.
Thank you, Professor. What about writing? I have to write essays, and it's overwhelming.
overwhelming. Overwhelming means to have such a great effect on you that you feel confused or do not know how to react. For example,
The first day at a new school can be overwhelming, with so many new faces.
Thank you, Professor. What about writing? I have to write essays, and it's overwhelming.
Start by outlining your thoughts before writing. And remember, your first draft doesn't have to be perfect.
I'm afraid of being judged for my writing.
Everyone starts somewhere. The important thing is to keep practicing.
Practice seems to be the key in all of this.
Exactly. And don't hesitate to ask for feedback. I'm always here to help.
That's very reassuring. Thank you for your advice and encouragement, Professor.
reassuring. Reassuring means to provide comfort or confidence to someone, making them feel less worried or uncertain. For example,
The doctor's reassuring words helped calm the patient's nerves before the surgery.
That's very reassuring. Thank you for your advice and encouragement, Professor.
You're welcome. Remember, language learning is a journey. Be patient with yourself.
I will try. Thank you for your time today.
Anytime. Let's meet again soon to discuss your progress.
Part 2. A coffee shop conversation. At the local coffee shop.
Hi, how have you been since our last meeting?
Better, thank you. I've been trying the techniques you suggested.
That's great to hear. Have you noticed any improvement?
A little. I've been watching shows in English, and I pause and repeat like you said.
Excellent. Are you finding it easier to understand spoken English?
Yes, somewhat. But I still feel nervous about speaking.
Let's practice right now. Order your coffee in English and take your time.
To the barista.
Can I have a latte, please?
Sure, anything else?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, please wait a moment. I'll prepare it for you soon.
Well done. See, you can do it.
It's just simple sentences I can manage. More complex ones are harder.
Practice makes perfect. Try to expand your sentences bit by bit.
I will. Oh, and I started the vocabulary journal. It's helpful.
That's fantastic. It's a great way to retain new words.
Retain. Retain means to keep or continue to have something. It's like holding on to something and not letting it go. For example,
She has an excellent memory and can retain facts and figures much better than her peers.
That's fantastic. It's a great way to retain new words.
But sometimes, I find idioms and slang confusing.
Those can be tricky. Context is key.
tricky. Tricky means something that is difficult to deal with or understand. It can also mean something that is likely to deceive you. For example,
The math problem was tricky, but after some thought, he figured out the solution.
Those can be tricky. Context is key. Try to understand them in the context of the sentence.
Do you have any tips for learning idioms?
Watch more native content, like TV shows, and pay attention to the idioms used.
I'll try that. What about improving my writing?
Write short essays or even daily journals. It's a good way to practice structuring your thoughts.
I'm worried about grammar mistakes in my writing.
Use tools like grammar checkers initially, but don't rely on them completely. Learning to self-edit is important.
self-edit. Self-edit means to review and make changes to your own work. For example,
After writing her essay, she took some time to self-edit, checking for grammar errors.
Learning to self-edit is important.
Self-editing seems hard.
It is at first, but like everything else, it gets easier with practice.
I've also been reading more, as you suggested.
That's excellent. Reading is one of the best ways to improve your language skills.
Sometimes, I find new words and I add them to my journal.
That's the spirit.
that's the spirit. That's the spirit means an expression used to encourage someone, showing approval for their positive attitude or determination. For example,
When she said she would try again, despite failing the first time, her coach smiled and said, "That's the spirit."
That's the spirit. Integrating learning into your daily activities is very effective.
integrate. Integrate means to combine one thing with another to create a whole or to become part of a group or society. For example,
The school's curriculum aims to integrate technology into every aspect of learning.
Integrating learning into your daily activities is very effective.
Thank you for all your advice, Professor. It's really helping.
I'm glad to hear that. Remember, consistency is key. Keep practicing.
I will. Thank you for meeting me here today.
My pleasure. Let's continue to meet and discuss your progress.
Part 3. Library Learning Session. At the University Library.
Hi, Professor. I've been reading more English books, as you suggested.
That's excellent. What kind of books have you been reading?
Mostly novels. I find them more engaging.
engaging. Engaging is used to describe something that you find really interesting and that you enjoy a lot. For example,
The story in the book is engaging. It makes me want to read more.
Mostly novels. I find them more engaging.
Novels are a great way to immerse yourself in the language.
Immerse oneself. Immerse oneself means to become completely involved or absorbed in something, often forgetting everything else. For example,
She decided to immerse herself in learning Spanish, dedicating several hours each day to studying and practicing the language.
Novels are a great way to immerse yourself in the language. Have you encountered any new idiomatic expressions?
Yes, quite a few. I write them down and try to understand the context.
Good approach. How about we go over some of them together?
That would be helpful. Here's one. Bite the bullet. I found it confusing.
Bite the bullet means to endure a painful or unpleasant situation. It's often used when talking about facing something difficult.
That makes sense now. I've also been trying to speak more in my daily interactions.
That's the best way to improve. Are you finding it easier to form sentences?
Somewhat. But I still struggle with fluency.
Fluency comes with time. Keep practicing and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
I try, but sometimes I get embarrassed.
Remember, everyone learning a new language goes through this. It's completely normal.
I guess you're right. Also, I've been working on my writing.
Excellent. Have you been able to apply the feedback from our last session?
Yes, I've been outlining my thoughts before writing. It helps organize my ideas.
That's a great strategy. How about grammar? Are you finding it easier now?
A bit, but I still have to look up rules sometimes.
That's perfectly fine. Over time, you'll need to do that less and less.
I've noticed I'm understanding grammar better when I read.
Reading is a fantastic way to internalize grammar structures.
internalize. Internalize means to take ideas, beliefs, or feelings and make them part of your own way of thinking or feeling. For example,
She internalized the rules of the game, so she plays very well now.
Reading is a fantastic way to internalize grammar structures.
Speaking of reading, I sometimes struggle with complex sentences in books.
When you come across a complex sentence, break it down into smaller parts and try to understand each part.
come across. Come across means to find or encounter something or someone, often by chance. For example,
While cleaning the attic, she came across her old high school yearbook.
When you come across a complex sentence, break it down into smaller parts and try to understand each part.
I'll try that. It's just that sometimes the sentence structure is so different from my native language.
That's a common challenge. With practice, you'll get a better feel for English sentence structure.
Thank you, Professor. Your advice is always so helpful.
You're welcome. I'm here to support you in your learning journey.
I appreciate it. I feel more confident already.
Keep up the good work. Let's continue to meet regularly.
Part 4. Group study discussion. At the study group room.
Hello. You guys are group studying here, just like I suggested. How are you feeling about your English learning journey now?
Much better, Professor. Joining the study group has been helpful.
That's great to hear. Group learning can be very effective. What have you been focusing on?
We've been practicing conversation skills and sharing learning tips.
Yes, and we've also been helping each other with vocabulary and pronunciation.
That's a wonderful approach. Collaborative learning can provide diverse perspectives.
Collaborative. Collaborative means to involve two or more people working together towards a common goal. For example,
Our team's collaborative spirit helped us succeed in the competition.
That's a wonderful approach. Collaborative learning can provide diverse perspectives.
I've also noticed that explaining things to others helps me understand better.
Teaching is an excellent way to deepen your own understanding.
We sometimes do role plays to practice different scenarios.
Role plays are a fantastic way to practice speaking in a safe and supportive environment.
It's fun, but I still get nervous sometimes.
It's normal to feel nervous. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
We've also been using English media as a learning tool.
Integrating media into learning can make it more engaging and realistic.
I've started listening to English podcasts. They're really helpful.
Podcasts are a great way to improve listening skills and get used to different accents.
We're planning to start a book club next.
A book club is an excellent idea. Discussing a book can deepen your understanding and expose you to new vocabulary.
I'm a bit worried about expressing my thoughts on complex topics.
Start with simpler books and gradually move to more complex ones. It's okay to take small steps.
We try to encourage each other. It's a supportive environment.
That's the key. A supportive environment can make a huge difference in language learning.
Sometimes, we discuss grammar points that confuse us.
Discussing and clarifying grammar points in a group can be very effective.
clarify. Clarify means to make something clear or easier to understand, often by explaining it in more detail. For example,
The professor took a moment to clarify the assignment requirements, ensuring that all students understood the expectations.
Discussing and clarifying grammar points in a group can be very effective.
And we correct each other's mistakes in a constructive way.
Constructive feedback is important. It helps you learn from your mistakes.
This group has really helped me feel less isolated in my learning process.
isolated. Isolated means to be alone or apart from others, often feeling cut off from other people or things. For example,
He felt isolated in his new school, not having made any friends in the first few weeks.
This group has really helped me feel less isolated in my learning process.
Learning a language can be a communal experience. I'm glad you're finding the group helpful.
Thank you for suggesting I join this group, Professor.
You're welcome. Keep up the good work and continue to support each other.
Part 5. Reflecting on progress. In the professor's office again.
Welcome back. It's been a while since we first met. How do you feel about your English now?
I feel much more confident, thanks to your guidance and the study group.
I'm glad to hear that. Reflecting on your journey, what do you think helped you the most?
Practicing regularly and not being afraid to make mistakes. Also, the support from the group was invaluable.
That's excellent insight. Making mistakes is a natural part of the learning process.
Insight. Insight means the ability to gain an accurate and deep understanding of a person or thing. For example,
Reading the book gave me a new insight into world history.
That's excellent insight. Making mistakes is a natural part of the learning process.
Yes, and I've also noticed that I'm understanding movies and TV shows in English much better now.
That's a significant achievement. It shows how much your listening skills have improved.
And reading. I've finished a couple of novels in English, and it was much easier than before.
Fantastic. Reading is a powerful tool for language learning.
I still have some difficulties, especially with complex grammar. But it's getting better.
Continuous improvement is what matters. Language learning is an ongoing journey.
True. I'm also thinking about starting a blog in English to practice writing.
That's a wonderful idea. Writing regularly will significantly improve your skills.
I'm a bit nervous about it, but I think it's a good step.
Absolutely. And remember, it's okay to start with simple topics.
Will do. I also want to thank you for all your support and advice.
You're very welcome. I'm proud of the progress you've made.
Your encouragement made a big difference, especially in the beginning, when everything seemed overwhelming.
Always happy to help. Remember, even as you become more proficient, keep practicing and exploring the language.
proficient. Proficient means to have a high degree of competence or skill in a particular area or field. For example,
After years of practice, he became proficient in French, able to converse fluently with native speakers.
Even as you become more proficient, keep practicing and exploring the language.
I will. And I'll keep participating in the study group. It's been fun and very helpful.
That's great to hear. Stay curious and open to learning, and you'll continue to make great strides.
I feel like I've come a long way since we first met.
You certainly have. Keep up the good work. And don't hesitate to reach out if you need any more guidance.
Thank you, Professor. I won't forget this journey.
It's been my pleasure to be a part of it. Best of luck with your future endeavors in English.
endeavor. Endeavor means to try hard to do or achieve something in an attempt to accomplish a task or goal. For example,
Her endeavor to become a doctor took many years of hard work.
Best of luck with your future endeavors in English.
I am deeply grateful for everything you've taught me. I will carry these lessons with me always.
Pattern. English.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and hit the like button.
Thanks for watching this video.
Pattern English.